I came to Cucuta, Colombia because things have changed here quite a bit since the last time I was here, and it has a lot to do with the foreign terrorist organization designations that the Trump administration is proposing or making during his second term. There are about 70 organizations on the FTO list around the world. Most of them are Muslim extremist organizations. But in Latin America, they are cartels. So, what does putting them on the FTO list do for America? This is an important point. We've been obviously aggressively pursuing these cartels and the drug trade in general in the Western Hemisphere for decades, many, many years. So whether or not the ELN or the FARC are on the FTO list, they've already been targeted by the United States many times. These cartels have had their leaders arrested and extradited and sent to the United States many times by the US. So why make them FTOs at this point? The benefits to this are that it gives the United States a different kind of legal authority to disrupt these terrorist activities that they engage in. So what we're saying is, yes, they're a criminal organization. That's their main focus. However, they use terrorist means to accomplish that. Just in the last 48 hours, between where I'm sitting and the Venezuelan border, there have been a number of bombs that have gone off that have been set by the ELN. One of them went off in a police station. They say it was a car bomb. I think maybe it wasn't actually a car bomb. I walked through the rubble of the police station, and it appears to me that the bomb went off inside the police station, not outside it, just by the pattern of debris. And I've seen a lot of bombs, debris in my time, so I can kind of read it. And looking at that, there was a bomb that was placed inside the police station that blew it up, and it was a very small police station, more like a guard station, the size of a small house, but it was completely flattened. It's just rubble at this point. They completely flattened it, not one stone left upon another. There was a piece of metal shelf driven into a tree so deep that I couldn't move it. I mean, couldn't even, wiggle it. It was amazing. And apparently that went off in the middle of the night sometime, so there wasn't actually anybody at the police station, which is good. So there were no casualties from that. Then a few hours after that, the ELN detonated a car bomb in a toll booth on the road between the border and Cucuta. That toll booth is now in just ruins, and the remnants of the car bomb are kind of pushed off to the side of the road. And so I will put up videos of those later on today on chuckholton.com. So the ELN claimed responsibility for both of those. In the case of the bombing at the toll booth, they actually warned the toll operators and they ran away before they detonated it. So that was nice of them, I guess. But there have been more than 100 people killed in the last month in the fighting here between all these organizations. It's fighting over territory between the FARC and the ELN, because this is one of the most prolific coca growing areas in Colombia. So the real question I had was, why now? What was it that caused this violence to break out now? And it actually has a lot to do with the second Trump administration, because when the Trump administration came in and canceled all foreign aid, just stopped all foreign aid, and they didn't stop it permanently, I don't think. What they say was that they're just stopping everything because there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse that they've got to go through the books and figure out what's what and stop the waste. And I totally agree with that. 100%. However, not everything the United States government was doing was waste, fraud, and abuse. And so a lot of those programs that were actually helpful are now stopped. And what we're seeing is the United States provided a whole bunch, about like 35 Black Hawk helicopters to the Colombian military. So the Colombian military flies everywhere in Black Hawk helicopters. And that's how they track down and attack if they have to do raids against the cartels. Well, the United States still owns those helicopters, from what I understand, and our US funding was funding the maintenance of those helicopters. So when the Trump administration canceled everything, they also canceled the maintenance contracts on those helicopters, and they had to ground all 35 helicopters. So now, with no air support, the Colombian military is scrambling to try to make up the difference and try to continue to prosecute the war against the cartels here. The cartels are noticing that there's no more helicopters in the sky, and they're going, ha, now's our chance. And so the fighting breaks out amongst these guys, and they're going after each other. So it's just one small ripple that's being caused by the policies of the Trump administration. And I'm sure that most Americans really could care less if there's fighting going on in the mountains of Colombia. So let's go back to these foreign terrorist organization designations. One of the benefits of that is it helps international cooperation and diplomatic leverage, so we can pressure foreign governments to take action against these organizations and provide a basis for sanctions and counterterrorism measures that we get Panama or Colombia or Ecuador, whatever, to coordinate their military police response with the United States, and we provide them with some resources like signals intelligence. We fly our planes down there and suck up the SIGINT and then send it to them. The United States does that in Panama a lot. We use our great technical advantages against the cartels in Panama by listening in on their phone calls and sucking up their internet stuff and even their satellite phone calls and things. And so then by doing that, we can find out, for example, there's a large shipment of cocaine that's going to be driving through La Chorrera in Panama at this date, at this time, in this place. So rather than sending the Navy SEALs in there to do something about it, we call the Panamanian police and we say, hey, it'd be a really good idea if you guys maybe set up a checkpoint in La Chorrera at 11 p.m. tomorrow night. And I just on a whim, stop every red Toyota Camry that you see that looks a little suspicious. And sure enough, they stop a red Toyota Camry and the thing's full of coke. And the Panamanian government gets to put them on TV and crow and show their police and see, our police are doing such a great job. We're killing it here. We're taking out the cartels. And the U.S. just fades into the background, doesn't say a thing. So we just layup after layup, just hand them these narcos on a platter and then let them come in and take the credit for taking them out. And that's fine. We don't want the credit. We just want them to be taken out. So that's one of the things that we can do by designating these guys as FTOs, is we can work more closely with the host countries to get them to do things about it. We also can take action against anybody in the United States who is assisting or facilitating these FTOs. This, if you think about it, does not bode well for many of the trafficking organizations, the NGOs that were assisting or facilitating the movement of migrants north into the United States, like Sin Fronteras, for example, is Without Borders, is a NGO that would give shelter and food and medical assistance and advice to the migrants as they were making their way through Mexico. That advice would tell them where they could go to get through the border without getting caught, or how they could present their case to the Border Patrol agents that might catch them in order to make an asylum claim and get allowed into the United States. Because if you just show up and go, I want more money, which is exactly what they want, the Border Patrol is going to go, no, turn around, go back to Mexico. You can't come in. But under the Biden administration, if they showed up and they said, oh, I was beaten by a policeman in my home country on the northeast corner of the Central Park in my town, that qualifies as persecution by the government of your country. Oh, well, now that's a preliminary okay that allows you into the United States so that you can stay here for the next 3 years waiting for your asylum claim to be adjudicated. Well, designating these cartels that were working hand in glove with Sin Fronteras to move these people north now allows the US government to go after the bank accounts and the leadership of Sin Fronteras, I'm just using them as an example, and actually prosecute those guys and put them in jail. So that's super helpful. And, we've done this for different organizations at different times all around the world. There are some things that would actually make it more difficult. It kind of is straining the relations, let's say, between the United States and Mexico for us to be designating the cartels as FTOs. The president of Mexico she's really upset. Why would it upset you for the United States to say, Mexico, you've got a big problem with criminal organizations, so we're going to help you deal with that? And she's going, we do not have a big problem with criminal organizations and we can handle it. Well, you haven't been handling it. I think more likely is that she is literally a puppet of the cartels and is being paid by the cartels. Her bank account is probably receiving regular infusions of cash from the cartels in order to look the other way so that they can continue to do their business. So it's going to be personally costly for her if we start taking these guys out. Now, the first thing everybody thinks about when you talk about designating these cartels as FTOs is that we're going to start dropping bombs on them or sending the special forces into Mexico to do raids on cartel safe houses or something. And that's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not the first thing that is on the menu. It's not the first thing we need to do. The ability of going after these organizations is not contingent on them being designated as terrorist organizations. But by doing so, it just opens up the armory a little bit further and gives us a few more weapons in our arsenal to use against them. We're already using things like the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Act to freeze the assets of drug trafficking organizations. We're already extraditing high-profile cartel members like Chapo Guzman to the United States. We're already doing joint operations with Mexican security forces, and this kind of designation would allow us to do more. And we're already conducting intelligence and surveillance to some extent against these guys using satellites and wiretaps and informants and different things like that to track their movements. We've already been doing those things, but the FTO designation would allow us to do them more. And it would give us that legal avenue to go after their bank accounts in the US and anybody who facilitates or assists these organizations. That is the bigger thing about this. It's not even about dropping bombs on cartel members in Mexico. It's about taking out some of these NGOs and perhaps arresting some of them, putting them in jail for having worked with the cartels to facilitate the trafficking of human beings into the United States.